Namaskaram. It's wonderful to be here in Hyderabad. I grew up in Bangalore, which is like roughly 250 kilometers from here, and then went to the US to go to school, like a lot of us. And so it's a tremendous pleasure to be back in Hyderabad and back with all of you. And every single time I come to India, I see tremendous digitization and progress, thanks to people like Pramod, who have introduced so many digital public infrastructure goods here. So my topic today, I thought I'd talk about what the role of each and every one of us is in open source. Because open source doesn't happen by itself. Each of us has to play a very strong role in moving open source forward. Before I do the actual talk, I want to congratulate the Linux Foundation, particularly Arpit and his entire team in India. This is the inaugural launch of Open Source Summit India. Thanks to all of you and your interest in open source. And it's the second year of the Linux Foundation in India. And of course, with the momentum and with the amount of adoption and contribution in open source in India, it was the most important thing we could do is start the Linux Foundation India here. So let me start by saying that the very heart of open source is all of you, is people, is community. Without community, open source would be only licenses and code. And we often talk about bits and bytes and unique licenses and project governance and things of that nature. But what makes it magical is people. You know, people every day making time to do contributions, to come to meetups, to come to conferences, to be engaged in moving open source forward. So I thank you for all of your contributions and for being here. But the important thing to understand is that the flywheel of open source, meaning what keeps it going, right? What keeps the momentum going, is not just to be a user, but to start adopting it and then start contributing, and then you start seeing the growth of your projects, and then the success of the project, and then the flywheel continues. If we did not have contribution and we just stopped at use and adoption, frankly, you would not see the success and the vibrancy of open source that's there today. As you can see, we all start off as users, and there are millions and millions of users, but many of us just stop at using. We don't even look behind and see what the project is, who is involved, how to get involved, etc. But some of us start getting involved, so you have some contributors. That pyramid kind of gets narrower, and then it gets even more narrow when it comes to maintainers and leaders of projects. Frankly, you'll find that 40% of projects have just one maintainer. And we all depend upon these projects with just one person who's bearing the entire burden of the project. Imagine if more and more of us as users become contributors and become maintainers and leaders, the burden and the success and the sustaining of open source will be spread across a lot of us. And we can also bring so much unique perspective from India, from our use cases, from what's happening here, and from our perspective. All of us have a role to play in being a leader and a contributor. So let me start with some simple steps. So the first step is, from a passive user, how can I become an educated user? And then how can I move to becoming an active user? So things like getting involved in the mailing list or in the Slack of the projects that you're consuming, learning more about the community, learning more about the health of the project. How many people are here? What are the rules for contribution? What's the code guidelines? How is the community doing? What do they need, etc. The second area to get involved in is security. What's the security process and protocol for this project? How can I understand more so that when there is a security incident, I know what to do? And last but not the least, you can share your user stories with projects, with the conference, and help other users know how you're using it and how they can also start using it. User-to-user support is one of the most important elements of contribution. And then, are you ready to become a leader? Now that you're an active user, how can you go from user to contributor? So a lot of us think contribution is only code contribution. Frankly, code is just one piece of the contribution. I think we need people who can join community and manage user groups, promote the user group, do documentation, do translation into many different languages, join the governing board, join the user groups. There's so many different ways that you can start becoming an active contributor to projects. And open source, while it started 30 years ago, frankly, a lot of us are gray-haired. We also call it gray beards and gray hair of open source, right? And so we need young people, we need new people to get involved in open source, men and women and everyone to be involved, to keep the open source movement going, to keep contributing, to keep it alive, to bring your fresh ideas to the table. I would love to see India not just passively consuming, but becoming a contributor, and frankly, becoming a leader. Look at the number of projects that the digital public infrastructure is using here in India. You have so much to give and so much to contribute. And frankly, in the age of AI, it's even more important for India to be a participant, to be a contributor. If you do not participate, the models and the AI will be very Western-based, will be driven by only a few countries, and we won't see the languages of India, the culture of India, the values of India reflected in models, in AI. And the way you do it is through open models, by looking at the data, contributing data, refining these models for reflecting the culture of India. So one of the last things I'll say is, please, if there's one thing you can do today, is to say, make a goal for yourself for the rest of the year and next year, and say, what next step can I take in becoming more involved? If I'm a user, what can I do to become an educated user? What can I do to become an active user? And if I'm already using, what can I do to contribute? What skills can I bring to the table? How can I learn more about getting involved in Linux Foundation India or open source projects like KubeCon starting next day? Please take the time to do that and become a part of this global movement and become an active driver of open source rather than just a user. I want to say dhanyavadalu to all of you. And I don't speak Telugu, I speak Kannada, but Telugu is so similar to Kannada that it was really easy to say dhanyavadalu to all of you. And excited to be here in Hyderabad, the land of the Charminar, the Nizams, and the wonderful Telugu culture. I am going to next do an introduction of my panel, but before that, thank you again.